Emotional manipulation is a fundamental part of pro wrestling. Whether a performer is standing in the ring with clenched fists or with a microphone in their hand, the goal of pro wrestling is always the same: get a desired reaction from the audience. In its simplest form, this means generating sympathy and support for the hero, and disapproval and condemnation for the villain. In the end, fans should want to see justice done, with good triumphing over evil. They should want to cheer the babyface and boo the heel. And this isn't always easy to manufacture. Sometimes it's made more difficult by stubborn or tone-deaf creative decisions, by a misunderstanding or a misuse of talent, or by not being given a reason to care. You'll have to forgive my pretentious indulgence here, but there is an art to this, you see. And on the November 17th, 2021 edition of AEW Dynamite, we got to witness 3 masters at work, 2 on the stage and 1 behind the curtain. For not only were Bryan Danielson and CM Punk able to get the desired reactions from the crowd because of their own talents and characters, they were able to do so because of the elegant creative decisions and pro wrestling IQ of their booker, Tony Khan. I'm Rivenblade, and today I'm looking at how AEW managed to deftly create 2 special moments in one night and, against the odds, give fans a reason to boo and a reason to cheer. Fresh off his historic title victory over Kenny Omega at Full Gear, the hometown hero Hangman Adam Page is embraced by the fans in Norfolk, Virginia. But the celebration doesn't last long, as it's interrupted by also fan favorite Bryan Danielson, who is the #1 contender for Page's title after winning the AEW Eliminator Tournament, where he took down the monster heel Miro in the final. The crowd clearly loves Hangman, but they also love Danielson, who extends his hands to Hangman after saying he only came out to say one thing: "Congratulations, Hangman Adam Page." And the crowd ate it up. Now, before I get to what happens next, let's remember that there was some doubt in fan and media circles about whether a babyface Bryan Danielson taking on a babyface Hangman Page could be a compelling matchup. More so, there was strong doubt around whether Danielson could actually get people to boo him if he needed to be the heel in the feud, and whether Miro would have been a much better choice. Well, you probably know what comes next, so let's talk about it. The 2 men shake hands. Danielson says he's super excited for the match, but he says he's a little surprised and disappointed that it's not Kenny Omega standing across from him. Hangman drops a great line about Omega not being there because he beat him, and he managed to do it in less than 30 minutes, taking a not-so-subtle shot at Danielson being unable to do the same thing at Grand Slam 2 months beforehand. Danielson then takes a cowardly step back by saying he didn't come out here to start a beef with Hangman, despite being the one to take the first verbal jab at Hangman in their exchange, and the crowd starts to boo. Danielson follows up by saying Hangman isn't going to be wrestling someone who dresses up like a Ghostbuster for Halloween, and says that he's coming to kick some butt, and then directly attacks Hangman by saying that he, Danielson, is out here wrestling every single week while all Hangman is doing is flapping his gums. Then, knowing his audience, Danielson continues praising his own work ethic by saying that after winning the World Championship at WrestleMania, he wrestled the very next day. The very next day, he says again for effect, and gets met with a chorus of boos, to which Danielson responds, "Of course Virginia boos hard work." The segment gets even better with Hangman stepping in for the fans and saying if Danielson wants to wrestle for the championship, Hangman sees no reason why they can't do it right here tonight in Virginia, and the crowd eats it up. But just as quickly, Danielson dashes their hopes by lazily leaning back against the ropes and saying that he'd normally be up for it, but that while he's got his gear on, Hangman isn't dressed for a match, and Danielson doesn't want Hangman to have any excuses when Danielson beats him. He wants Hangman to be truly ready. Hangman responds that they won't have the match tonight, that he knows Virginia is for lovers, but that he'll still fight. and the two men are pulled apart, leaving the crowd ravenous for their eventual match. Whew. And just like that, Bryan Danielson goes from being the fan favorite who took Kenny Omega to his limit, the badass who stood toe-to-toe with Minoru Suzuki and won, and the David who overcame Goliath, to being rejected and reviled by the fans. And he did it so naturally and so elegantly that he didn't really change anything about himself at all, that of course he was going to be the villain in his feud against Hangman. Any doubts about fans not buying Bryan Danielson as a heel were immediately erased with this segment, and there were really two reasons for this. One, Tony Khan knew exactly what he was doing when he booked this segment in Hangman's home state of Virginia. How do you get an audience to boo someone they love and respect like a Bryan Danielson? Put him face to face with someone the fans love and respect even more, and who just came off the biggest win of his entire career. Oh, and if you can stack the deck a bit more by booking the face-to-face exchange in the bigger babyface's hometown, you should probably do that too. 2. Danielson was perfect here. From the visual touch of changing the white on his trunks to black, to interrupting Hangman's celebration, to disingenuously congratulating him, to tearing down Virginia, and by proxy tearing down Hangman Adam Page, right down to backing out like a coward, saying he didn't come here to start a beef while 100% acting like a condescending party-crashing jerk. He played the crowd like a fiddle. And it was brilliant. Just a pitch-perfect segment with strongly booked wrestlers who were put in positions to succeed. It was just all really well done. And that wasn't the only character turn on the night. Later on, as MJF gloated about being the best in the ring and the best on the microphone, that sounds familiar, he was unceremoniously interrupted by CM Punk, who came into the ring to a mass of cheers. He was then offered a handshake by MJF, which he turned down, and then Punk simply walked away without saying a word, and the crowd loved it. Okay, so why was this special? Well, think back to CM Punk's last appearance and feud before this one. It was against Eddie Kingston, in which Punk was clearly positioned as a sanctimonious heel, even going so far as mimicking John Cena's 5 moves of doom during their match at Full Gear. The funny thing is, Punk didn't really change much of himself to get there, which is part of the chameleonic genius of everything I'm talking about in this video. Yeah, chameleonic, it's a word. The other genius part here is the booking. You see, after beating Eddie Kingston in a match where Eddie Kingston was the clear crowd favorite, and where Punk at least partially pulled himself back from the fans, Tony Khan needed to rebalance the scales and get the fans 100% behind Punk again, especially if Khan wanted to continue capitalizing on Punk's honeymoon period in AEW. So, how did he ensure that the audience would unanimously cheer Punk after defeating a fan favorite days prior to this appearance? By making him confront the most reviled heel in all of AEW right after the heel bragged about his own greatness and insulted the crowd. At that moment, any memory of CM Punk being a jerk to Eddie Kingston and the fans with the Cena stuff was erased. Once again, Tony Khan played character matchmaker to a T and orchestrated a moment which maximized boos for MJF and consequently maximized cheers for CM Punk. And we gotta give Punk his flowers here too. Like Danielson, he is so good at walking the line between light and dark that at any moment we are ready to either cheer him or boo him. His integrity ensures that he doesn't take backtalk from anyone and that he stands up for himself. These are character traits that can be both noble or personally ruinous depending on the situation, and the only thing that ever really changes isn't Punk's values, but the situation around him. And yes, at some point he likely will dip into his darker impulses a little more fully, at which point I'll be right there booing him mercilessly, but I'll be equally ready to cheer him again whenever he decides to redeem himself once more. And it's that ability to shapeshift and to pull the desired emotions out of the audience that makes these moments and these performers so brilliant. They are true chameleons, able to adapt to their environment and be whatever and whomever the current story demands them to be. In the end, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and Tony Khan are all master manipulators in the absolute best sense of the word. But what do you think? Did you enjoy these segments as much as I did? And how are you liking Punk's and Danielson's AEW run so far? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate it.